um, partners and guests. Now we have a very, very special time to hear the emerging voices, as we say, emerging voices from countries like Korea, the Philippines, and the Indonesia. And we'll have the opportunity to share fresh insights on the new challenges that face the globe today. We more and more experience and feel how whatever happens in one point in the world will directly impacts on us. So we'd like to hear three important voices, emerging voices, and we'd like to get the response of our audience, not just the regular, but especially the youth as well. So we have three featured speakers. We will start with the presentation by Michelle Hiewon, who is a second-year university student at the Richmond, USA. So she's on break. That's why she's in Korea. She's a native of Korea, and her topic will be on the leadership in crisis and the need for democratic and empathetic leadership. So very important topic. After Hyewon, we'll have a second presentation from the Philippines, Lakan Uhay Alegre, who's a member of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Society. Okay, and his topic will be regarding an important figure during World War II. His name is Ruperto Kangleon of Leyte, and it's about the leadership that paved the way for the Philippine Liberation Campaign during World War II. We know we're celebrating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. So, and then the third speaker will be Ainur Rahmah, who's a student of politics and international relations in Albukhary International University in Malaysia. So she's in Malaysia, but she's a native of Indonesia. And her topic will be to discuss leadership without borders. This is about when activism, culture, and sustainability meet. So looking forward to hear them one after another. So may we start with our first speaker, Hyewon Michelle Raw. You have the floor. So kindly unmute yourself.
Hi, I'll share my presentation. Uh,
Mm.
Sorry, I'm trying to see.
Yeah, take your time. Yeah, you can take it. You can share it.
Um, sorry,
Mm.
I'm trying to see which screen. Oh, I found it.
Mm.
This
Okay, coming.
is my presentation. Is it being shared?
Yeah, shared, but okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, you can see. We can see it.
Okay, so I'm I'm going to present about leadership, particularly focusing on some examples from Korea and some from the US. Uh, I wanted to talk about how we are in a crisis right now, and that's not a question. Um, just by looking at the news today, we can see like leaderships in crisis, just crisis over the world, global conflict. So I think leadership is very important in times like this. So um, and this is not just incidents happening just in some countries, but it's like a bigger trend of people losing trust in their leaders and especially in democracies. So I want to share some three important qualities of leadership using the examples from Korea and the US. So I wasn't familiar with leadership, so I looked up some theoretical studies done on leadership. So leadership theory has shifted over time. The old theories like the great man theory or trait theory said that leaders are born, they have like innate qualities like charisma and bravery, but it shifted to more modern approaches that focuses on leadership as relational and flexible. Something that happens throughout communication, context, and shared goals. I think this shift is relatable to the topic today, especially in democracies and social movement, where power isn't just about one person, but shared and shaped together. So I there are a lot of definitions of leadership, but I really like this one particular leadership by Yuko, Dr. Yuko. The It said that the process of influencing others to understand and agree about what needs to be done and how to do it, and the process of facilitating individual and collective effort to accomplish shared objectives is what leadership is. And leadership in politics is very important as the others here in influencing others is much bigger and wider, having impact across global scale. It's not just about other in terms of like individual relationship. It could be another country, another nation. Um, While it is stated that leadership is the process of influencing others to understand and agree, this understanding and agreement could be done forcefully or voluntarily. I say that that's why I looked at this one quality of leadership, democratic leadership, which is very important in current society as it protects basic human rights and citizens. So I there is a clear trend of this decline of democracy over the world. I looked at some statistics, and it said that only 39% of people in OECD countries trust their national government.
Michelle, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you, but I think we can see the bigger. Yes, yes. Could
Sorry?
even bigger.
Okay, a little, yeah. The screen seems
Somehow
small.
only
The
on
letter.
your
Okay, yeah,
Right.
good.
Is this
Yeah,
right?
yeah, very good.
Better.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Wait,
phones.
can you see it now too?
You can hear it in the headphone. The volume here. No. What? Your phone? No.
Make it more full screen, bigger, or full screen.
Oh, wait.
Can you hear? Now it's
But can you give me a
muted.
minute? Sorry.
Oh, there she goes.
Right.
Can you hear?
They
I think.
young people use a little different, the programs. So it's not
He's talking right now.
PowerPoint point program.
Yeah. Uh-uh.
Uh,
Yeah. She made a sound.
Okay, good.
He's talking.
so
She's talking. Let me see if I can mute it here.
is it being shared? Okay. So there is a clear trend of how people are losing trust in their government and also in some trend in the youth that they feel like the democracy is in danger in their own country. And I think that's why democratic leadership is in danger and it's important to look at. Um, I think so. Democratic leadership emphasizes participation and shared decision making, and instead of giving orders like authoritarian leaders, democratic leaders give information and invite opinions. Research shows that this approach actually leads to more productive teams, more satisfied followers, and stronger trust. This is important in management of the government itself because it, as mentioned, fosters the spirit of being involved in a team and builds trust, eventually increasing productivity not only on the government management scale, but also in terms of national scale. When citizens see this transparency in decision making and feel heard, they're more likely to support the government, and this builds legitimacy and strengthens democratic accountability. So I looked at some theories that relates to democratic leadership, and one is leader-member chain exchange theory that says high quality relationships between leaders and their followers lead to better performance, trust, and involvement. And another theory says that leadership is something built over time through shared understanding and group interaction. So I looked at one example. I brought one example from Korea. Is He is a former president, Roh Moo-hyun. For a long time, South Korea was led by authoritarian figures and leaders, particularly like using military control. And it was more like top-down comment-driven approach, but over time there was a shift towards democratic values, especially with leaders who wanted to break away from that traditional power structure. And one key example is this president. He was known for challenging the old top-down dynamics and trying to bring politics closer to the people. He held open forums where he talked directly to citizens, and he strongly emphasized transparency and public communication. And most importantly, he shifted power away from elites and towards everyday people. Uh, this so while democratic leadership is important, I wanted to share another quality that I thought is important but very tricky, which is charismatic leadership. So, charismatic leadership is very tricky as it often considered as a double-edged sword. Charismatic leaders gain public support through strong personal appeal and a compelling vision for the future. This style is especially powerful in times of uncertainty when people are looking for direction and hope. So it's very important in times of crisis. But what makes charismatic leaders effective is their ability to connect people's individual identities to a shared goal. And this can be this national goal. And they feel like they're in a bigger like purpose and they're part of this. But this metaphor, charisma as fire, I found this one metaphor that is known widely that crisis and uncertainty works as oxygen, and the leader works as spark, and the followers are flammable material. This shows the risk of charismatic leadership because it can have bring blind loyalty from followers or over dependence on leaders, or the charisma can lead to the overconfidence of the leader and have the leaders can have selfish decisions. So one example that I brought from South Korea is Park Chung-hee. He is known for his military force use in his presidency. He it is very controversial in Korea, but um, he is known to lead South Korea's agricultural society to industry more focused power, known as the Miracle on the Han River. However, his presidency is controversial because he limited civil liberties and he ruled through military control and fear. His charisma achieved economic growth but undermined democracy. So, um, I learned through some research that there is another type of leadership similar to charismatic leadership called transformational leadership. It is similar in a way that how this leader inspires and motivates the followers, but it is reciprocal leadership with charismatic leadership in where while charismatic leadership is like one way. Also, it is considered to be based on ethical values. In times of crisis, there are many cases when a charismatic leader would promote nationalistic ideas, while while nationalism is important to fostering unity and the sense of belonging within a country, when it is not based on these moral values and humanitarian missions, it can often lead to exclusion and discrimination. That's why I brought another quality that I think is very important, which is empathetic leadership. Um, this one doesn't get a lot of attention in politics because it is considered to be very ideal, but I think it's very important in the current days. Empathy in leadership is um, about humility, emotional intelligence, and respect for others' perspectives. And recent studies show that empathetic leaders build strong teams, promote inclusion, handle stress and conflict more effectively. This study was done for the workplace leadership, but I think it can be applied to political situations also. Through interview-based research that this paper did, in times of global uncertainty, leaders who listened, cared, and included others often earned greater legitimacy than those who simply exerted authority. And according to research in the Harvard Business Review, empathetic leaders can boost engagement by 20% and increase productivity by 17%. However, there are some challenges and downside of this leadership. It can delay actions if it's too much and due to emotional reasons. And empathy in politics is hard because leaders feel pressure to look strong and often have to make unpopular but necessary decisions. Some examples of empathetic leaders are Kim Dae-jung from South Korea. He is known to expand the civil liberties in South Korea and supported minority rights. Another example whom is from the US is Jimmy Carter. He did have some economic struggles, and there are some people who don't like him for that, but it is he is known for prioritizing human rights in US foreign policy, promoted peace and diplomacy over power. Um, and on the other hand, I brought the current president, Donald Trump, and I brought this example to show how this lack of humanitarian values and the ethical, moral values can lead to this decline of democracy in the US because he promotes this America First policy and an anti-immigration stance, and he withdrew from global agreements like um, H, uh, WHO and UN Human Rights Council and Paris Climate Accord, some some might view less of the need for empathy, and that empathy, some people say that empathy is weak. However, I think the power of empathy is to bring people together and different nation together is strong. And empathy in the US had led to protests against the cruel administration at times that undermined human rights and minority group. Empathy in South Korea had led to I believe to impeachment of presidents as people understood what it is to lose democracy. I believe that empathy can mobilize people, and an empathetic leader can be strong with this power to move people. And when applied in global world, it can make a big difference. So I I believe that not just one quality of this leadership types that I brought today is important, but the balance of these different qualities is more important because too much charisma can, without empathy, can be dangerous. Empathy without charisma can lead to low support and delayed action. So I think it is very important to balance these traits for the leader. So, to conclude, I believe that the leadership we need today is democratic and empathetic, rooted in a global awareness and a deep commitment to humanitarian values, and who has these qualities with the balance of these qualities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Let me just encourage everyone, if you do have questions directed to Michelle, to write it down so you don't forget it, because we'd like to be able to hear all three presentations. So, uh, so we will proceed now to the second speaker. So certainly it's good to see everything that we needed to hear to help us synthesize all the thoughts on the most important uh, issues of the day in the future. So our next speaker will be Lakan Uhay Alegre, the member of Leyte-Samar Heritage Society. He's a Filipino, and he will talk about a, a look back to history about Ruperto Kangleon of Leyte, the leadership that paved the way for the Philippine Liberation Campaign during World War II. Okay, Lakan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sir Raymond. I'll let me share my screen. All right. Good evening, everyone. Well, it's evening here in the Philippines. It might be different time zones now, but I'll jump right into my presentation. My presentation is titled "Kangleon of Leyte: The Leadership That Paved the Way for the Philippine Liberation Campaign During World War II." When I was given the briefer of this forum, no, I was already enticed to already connect it to um a certain shared struggle that we all have in a certain period, a specific period in time, which is World War II. No. And as Michelle has actually illustrated and elaborated earlier, this is the kind of situation that we have right now globally. No. We have two current wars ongoing as of the moment, Russia versus Ukraine, no? And then you have the Palestine versus Israel. And why is it important to cite this situationer in discussing what the youth and what the youth's voice is and what its responses to the kind of leadership that we need today? For one, in Leyte, which is the eastern central part of the Philippines, where I am from, World War II didn't arrive until May 25, 1942. But it was already ongoing. There were several wars already ongoing in the Europe theater. And in this case, today, there's also one in the Middle East. No? And it doesn't mean that we weren't affected immediately during World War II, that it would not arrive in Philippine shores, or in this case, any other part of the world. And right now, while there are two ongoing ones, we have one that's not yet, and hopefully will not start. No, we have China versus Asia in the Pacific, which is directly affects the Philippines because if you don't know yet, we have ongoing struggle with enforcing the arbitral ruling, the UNCLOS arbitral ruling of the seas of the West Philippine Sea, which China has been claiming as part of the South China Sea and part of their nine dash line. No. So you can see that that struggle isn't with the Philippines alone, but a greater part of Asia. It's naval to that sense, similar to as well to how the Japanese had invaded several parts of Asia during World War II. So I'd like to put us back to World War II and look at it in a context how it parallels to certain events today. And wars usually show the best and the worst of us. No? It produced Hitler, but it also produced a Roosevelt, Quezon in the case of the Philippines, a Churchill, and even the controversial Stalin. No? It produced also Mussolini at the same time. So you have all these extremes of both good and evil, and even in the controversial side. I'd like to talk about a specific figure in Leyte that's not really in the mainstream of when we talk about World War II. His name is Ruperto Kangleon, and he was a colonel during World War II. There are actually several parts of the whole biography of Kangleon because he was, before the war happened, he was also an Olympic medalist. No, he was Olympic. He participated as part of the Philippine team during the Olympics. And then World War II happens. After World War II, he became Secretary of the National Defense of the Philippines and was even elected as senator right after that. But for this presentation, I'll be zeroing in on what happened and what his role was during World War II. Specifically 3 years in the Philippines, 1942 to 1945, when he became the commander of the Leyte Area Command. As I've said earlier, the war arrived in my home island only on May 25, 1942, while violence was already ongoing elsewhere. And from the book For Love of Country by Joaquin Chung Jr., it cites that only 300 out of 1,800 soldiers actually surrendered, part of the Philippine Constabulary. The soldiers were aroused and they responded to protect the security of the population and fought the lawless elements that provided them the practice ground for clandestine combat with the Japanese that inevitably followed because the abuse of the Japanese were even worse than the lawless bands. Because as of this time, the Philippines had already de facto surrendered. But as you can see, only 300 out of the 1,800 soldiers actually surrendered when the Japanese had arrived in Pinamopoan, Capoocan, Leyte. Now, just to illustrate what part of the Philippines that is. So this is the map of the Philippines. Leyte, where I'm from, is this yellow part. And Manila is in the, if you can see my cursor, it's in this part of Luzon here. So that's how far, while bombings in Manila were already happening, it didn't really arrive in Leyte, not until May. Now, interestingly, Kangleon was already a soldier. He already commanded several outfits and battalions before the war was happening. So he wasn't actually in Leyte, which is now this part of the island, but here in Butuan, which is the southern part of the Philippines in Mindanao. He was assigned to defend the Agusan line when the Japanese had arrived. And unfortunately, he was captured and became a prisoner of war. Not until December 25, 1942, which is actually Christmas. And it's interesting because that's when guerrillas actually self-organized themselves, not yet with Kangleon, but several other smaller groups in the island. And there was this one conference where Graciano Capile, one of the guerrillas, had volunteered to take out Kangleon and escape him from the prison in Butuan to going back to southern Leyte. What's interesting here is that the Japanese had all of the resources to essentially eliminate all guerrilla forces and resistance against the Japanese Imperial Army. But again, no, 1,500 soldiers plus civilians were being self-organized because the violence that they had just been experiencing with the Japanese, even early on in May, no, had been just too atrocious. And so, even with the sea being occupied by a lot of naval forces, Graciano Capile with 13 crewmen rowed a makeshift boat, we call it a kabakaba, that's the local term, from Leyte, and then they rowed it down to Butuan. And they able to do this incognito without being really detected as soldiers because they were in disguise as fishermen. And then they were able to contact fellow guerrillas of this part of the Philippines, and they were assisted by the units of Capitan Famador and Artega of Agusan, which is the part where Kangleon was held. Eventually, from December 25 until December 29, they were able to walk 29 kilometers from the shore going to the camp, and then they went back again to the shore, rowed again na boat, and went back to the island. Imagine how dangerous that was during that time, no? You had uh the Japanese had all the guns, very violent, no? And eventually they would see that they had war crimes in the Philippines, no? And then but you have here fellow guerrillas that wanted and desired for their leader, Colonel Ruperto Kangleon, to go back to his hometown and eventually lead the guerrilla forces. So that's how much he was loved, no, of the Philippine of the guerrillas, and that's how much they knew how important he was. Eventually, after he was able to recover from the prison war, no, the prison camp, on October 21, 1943, roughly a year after, he eventually received his colonel papers, his promotion, and his appointment as commander of the Leyte Area Command. But this is again a year span, no, from December of 1942. What happened between that year? Well, there were a lot of guerrilla cleanups, that's how I call it, that happened in Leyte. And they were all led by Kangleon even before he was actually officially, quote unquote, became the commander. And they were able to eliminate and somehow, despite the odds, through guerrilla warfare, which is essentially non-conventional warfare, clean up several parts of Leyte so that the Allied forces would eventually land there and lead the liberation campaign. In late 1943, after his appointment, Japanese fascists hostaged his family, which is the sad part, and I'd say the peak of where I'd like to show what kind of leadership Kangleon actually had. Because to me, when I was reading his whole biography, especially his part of World War II, this is probably the most pivotal of how you could see a leader triumphs over all odds. In late 1943, his family, no, wife and then 3 of his children were held captive. And the Japanese wanted him to surrender with all of his forces. And as the Koreans would know, when the Japanese held you hostage, they do the worst and the most inhumane treatment of you and your family. So this is something for a commander, no, of the whole entire island to it's a psychological moral dilemma of what you do. Do you surrender and surrender all of your forces and leaves the whole island without a leader in the struggle against Japanese fascism, or how do you deal it with your family? For Kangleon, which is even and this is the most heroic part, I think, of the dialogue. By the way, yes, Kangleon spoke in English because we were already a colony of the United States, and he was schooled in one of the top universities of the Philippines. So this actual quote comes from an interview of him from Jonathan Chung, who is the interviewer, from the source of the book where I got the quote now. Colonel Campreong addressed his aide-de-camp upon news of this hostaging of his family. His aide-de-camp, no, to make things even more complicated, was Juanito Kangleon, his second-born son. He said to his second-born son, that I am prepared to lose everything for the sacrifices we are now undertaking. As for the capture, for the typo. As for the capture of my children, they are in God's hands. Tell the Japanese I will not surrender for love of country. And this is the part where I see the kind of leadership that you will really need and will be tested when crisis and more so wars happen. Instead of actually surrendering, no, Kangleon made the ultimate sacrifice. And judging from the interviews, his family, knowing the position of their father and husband, had already known the consequences and what the stakes were, no? What was at stake if God forbid they would be captured, and they were captured, no? So Kangleon had that briefing with his family even prior to his receipt, no, of the commander position of Leyte. So instead of surrendering, Kangleon actually channels all his anger against the Japanese who took his family hostage and leads more ambushes, more raids. He instructs his guerrilla forces to smuggle in food, radio equipment, guns, and other weapons into the island of Leyte. He supplies Allied command with intel. And this is where actually the liberation campaign was able to become successful. Primarily because of the guerrillas in Leyte and throughout the Philippines. No? So from May, no, in preparation of the actual landing of MacArthur and the Allied forces, which came from Brisbane in Australia, from May to September 1944, Kangleon finally, with adequate amount of forces, and he felt that the fighting spirit was already at heat, he instructs his forces to perform maximum violence against the Japanese. So how do you do that, no? As a leader who, despite all odds, you're already in guerrilla warfare, non-conventional warfare, and the assumption already is that you don't have the higher ground, no? But you have the moral ground, which is something important when we elect our leaders of today, and even look for the type of leadership that we need in today's ongoing crisis. Interestingly, no, Americans were in coordination with Kangleon's guerrillas, and they were in coordination with a lot of other guerrilla units in Leyte. But most importantly, in July, there was the submarine USS Nautilus. They had delivered supplies to Leyte from Mindoro, which is northern part of the Philippines, of southern part of Luzon. That's the biggest island, but it's part of northern Philippines. No? And they were able to smuggle all of those equipment, around 70 tons of equipment in record time, no? And they were undetected by the Japanese forces. So imagine that fighting spirit and that brilliance, street smart island brilliance on smuggling things from a submarine to a makeshift boat to the island, and then you pull it up the mountains. For this specific period, there were 50 pounds of corned beef, 100 pounds of cured ham, 350 pounds of cured bacon, and so forth, no? Aboard the submarine, and they were all smuggled in to the island, thereby providing food, information, and even arms to the Philippines. Without Kangleon, there would be no Leyte landing, and there would be no liberation campaign of the Allied forces in the Pacific. Kangleon's family was not rescued until October of 1944 during the Leyte landing itself. So roughly, his family was actually hostage for a year. the wife and then 3 of the children. And the heroism actually doesn't stop there. Just to give a glimpse of what else Kangleon was able to do after the war, no? Uh, while while the landing was already successful and then the campaign to liberate Manila and other parts of the Philippines was already happening, on June 26, 1945, he even returned the money, unused money, from uh from the Allied forces to the treasury to say that even if you are the United States, our colonial masters, quote unquote, we are still fighting an anti-imperialist campaign and we are still a nation of our own people. So here is your money back. That's how he even triumphs beyond the war. Kangleon returns $49,350 to the treasury. And this is, by the way, the receipt and proof of the return of the money. So, in the conclusory part of my presentation, I'd like to quote Scott Hildren from the book Finding Parker, which is actually a love story novel, no? That a life is measured by the number of lives it touches. Kangleon was able to, as Michelle had earlier suggested, was also inspirational. He was able to rally his troops and to convince them to continue the struggle for victory, despite all odds. And with the sacrifice that he made with his family, we can also conclude that the currency of service, public service, world service, and the struggle for democracy is actually sacrifice. So to go back to the question, what kind of leaders do we need today? With all these three elements as part of the context we have today. I'd like to answer it with a simple storytelling. No? We need a leader like Kangleon. We need someone who is willing to sacrifice everything for love of country and who can ignite our fighting spirit in the battles to come. We need someone who will continue our shared struggle against Hitlerism, which is the motherhood term for all forms of fascism, and who will continue the United Nations mission after the war of denazification and denuclearization. Why denazification? Well, because like the Nazis in Germany and the Italian fascists, Japanese were also fascists. And the struggle for denazification in the Philippines needs to continue because after the war, we didn't really reconcile the role of collaborators in power. Denuclearization because, as we all know, there's also the issue with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And after the atomic bombing, nukes were created. Now we have this at the back of our heads while other wars are ongoing in the world. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much. And I hope to answer some of your questions later on.
Thank you very much. It was a very informative way of sharing history, but at the same time giving important insights to the topic at hand. Maybe in contrast to Michelle's talk, who talks about also the impact of having effective leadership that applies everywhere, even in business. Yours would demonstrate the extreme situation of a wartime situation, and but that also applies even post-war, the kind of character that leaders must possess in difficult times. So please write down again your questions so that we can get all of our three speakers to respond to them. So let me go to our third speaker, Ainur Rahmah. She's a student of politics and international relations and from Albukhary International University in Malaysia. She is a native Indonesian. And her topic is Leadership Without Borders When Activism, Culture, and Sustainability Meet. So, Ainur, you have the floor. Kindly unmute and share with us your presentation.
Okay, let me share my screen first. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, very clear. Thank you.
Okay, right. Hello everyone. A very good evening to you all. I'm really happy that I've been invited to become one of the speakers in this forum. Well, as the theme today is leadership beyond borders, what kind of leaders does the world need today? And I bring my title, which is Leadership Without Borders when Activism, Culture, and Sustainability. First of all, before we going through the activism, culture, and sustainability needs, this title actually related to my background, where I am a final year student of Bachelor of Politics and International Relations at Albukhary International University, and just recently being an intern in focusing on ESG, which is Environment, Social, and Governance at Penang Port in Malaysia. And also, I have experience in summer school program at Hiewon, where I'm focusing on environment, on sustainability, and also I've been involving in Indonesian student associations in Malaysia, and also in the campus, and volunteering experience where I teach students from Indonesia who can offer for education. And in my international organizational experience, I also involving in international and national law, focusing on international and international law on sustainability as well as social development. That's a brief introduction about me. And right now, I will ask one big question. Like, since we are all different here, like, it must have the question like, how do you see the differences, right? So, in today's world, youth leadership itself is not cannot be limited to political skills or also formal authority. These the differences that we have um, from our faces, physically or our opinions, cannot be cannot be a challenge for us. Supposedly, it's supposed to be something that could reach us to find the answer. And many young change makers today are rising from movements rooted in activism, cultural identity, and also sustainability. As the quote say that, here I quote, we may look different, but our dreams of peace, safety, and purpose are actually the same. We all might be different, but the final destination is to find out what our peace is, how to be safe, and also the purpose of we are working together. And let me tell you something about my country. I'm proud to say that I'm Indonesian and I'm Achinese ethnic. So there are 1,300 ethnic groups in Indonesia. We all speak different languages, and although that we come up together with speaking Indonesian, and there are 6 religions in Indonesia. But these all the differences, we united in one single mode, which is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. So if you're not really familiar about Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, it actually means unity in diversity. It means that although we are different, but we are one. We are Indonesian. From that, I want to have another question, like what kind of leadership does um, this university need? Like the difference that we have it. So, so it will focus in on 3 points. The first one is activism, where the voice of youth in action. And then the second one is culture, when the identity that shapes leadership, and the sustainability, the future that we all share together. Let's go dive in. Like the first one is activism, the voice of youth in action. Well, activism itself is the act of challenging injustice or demanding change through movements, campaigns, or awareness. In my opinion, that activism is something that always related to volunteering as well, where youth actually are often excluded from power because they don't have in the government system or they are not involved directly. But the activism can give the youth to voice the problems that they matter to them, not only to them but also to the society. It allows ordinary people like me, like my friends, to lead movement without holding formal positions. I can give one of the example of that. One is that I'm doing the volunteering. I'm teaching the Indonesian children in Penang, where Indonesian children can offer for school at that time. So every week, every weekend, we come to Penang from Kedah, from my place, which is 1 hour, to Penang to teach them. It's a volunteering. It's something that we are do in action. We voice it. We manage to combine our the diaspora in Penang to make that movement, and also from climate justice to education equity, where activism is about acting this purpose. Acting this purpose means not only we loud the voice, but also we do something in action. Because without action, the voice cannot be anything. And that's where the activism, where the leadership is begins. It starts with the desires of making a voice toward toward something that matters. We want to voice anything in terms of education, in terms of sustainability for others. And maybe I will bring one of the history of youth and activism in Indonesia. It's called Sumpah Pemuda. Or this Sumpah Pemuda is actually it happens in 1928. So the Sumpah Pemuda, or it's called the Youth Pledge, was introduced by the youth in Indonesia, where we are all different, but we come with first, we are the sons and the daughter of Indonesia. We acknowledge our one motherland, Indonesia. Secondly, we are sons and daughter of Indonesia. We acknowledge one nation, the nation of Indonesia. And thirdly, we are the sons and daughter of Indonesia. We respect the language of United Indonesians. Like said, that become one of the, how to say, it's like one of the steps forward to to promote what the youth can do at a time when the colonizations happened from the Dutch. Okay, and let's go to the second part, which is culture, the identity that shapes the leaders. Well, here when we are saying about the cultures, it means that leaders without borders must navigate diverse identity and perspectives. I ever once involved in discussions about peace, peace building in Penang. So I'm just sitting there and listening to my lecture and also peacemaker in that place. They invited women from Penang and Kedah to talk about the conflicts that happens in the region. And there, I know that when we want to solve a conflict or problem, we are not just voices, we are just not like speak loud, but we also try to understand it at first sight. That's where we are sitting with them by understanding it. It's not like we just talk about it, like read the articles. It's fine to read the articles, but in my opinion itself, when you dive into something, you will feel more about it. And the culture itself is a set of values, language, beliefs, traditions, and artistic expressions of a group of people. Where we are all different, when we want to understand their problems, we should know what their habit is, what their behavior, and that's the way how to find a bridge to solve the problems. And Leaders Without Borders should navigate diverse identities and perspectives, and also it understanding culture allows youth leaders to connect with people, build trust, and make their message relevant. Because just imagine, like, if we all just open Google Scholar to read those research without knowing what happened exactly in the field, we cannot, like many articles or narratives bring to this something that's not a real fact. So we better check twice by experience what happened in the field. As a youth leader, I really think it's really important so we are not blind by the narrative itself. So here, I also experienced to teach diverse students which coming from Germany, Japan, and also others, just to understand how their behavior is. So the culture itself becomes a bridge for me to understanding what actually happens. And then the next one is sustainability. The sustainability itself is the future where we all share. Why I could say that because we know that sustainability is about protecting the planet and ensure justice for future generations. In this forum, there are senior and also as me junior. We don't want that as a junior, like living in the world in the future that cannot give a safety to us, like cannot give the safe in terms of sustainability itself. Why I do really think the sustainability is really matter for youth leader to point out is because we will live in the future. The climate change happens today, inequality and also resource exploitation could threaten the global peace. I mean, many conflicts caused by that, the inequality, for example, where I can give an example in Indonesia, the Papua conflict. It happens because there is no inequality. I'm coming from Aceh. Aceh, also known as we know Gerakan Aceh Merdeka or Aceh movement, which is there is a narrative saying that Aceh wants to separate from Indonesia back then, and then it's also actually caused by the inequality because I'm Aceh. We are don't mean that we are don't want to become Indonesian, but we want justice, we want equality. So at this time, it's important to see the conflict itself and how to solve it among the youth itself. And then the second point is a true leader must think long term and act with responsibility. During my internship, I'm working on the framework of ESG at Newport, and I realized that the act that we do today is really matter for the future. We cannot just make income by ignoring the future. I really learned to do research on this, and it's it's like something that you are invest to the future. We invest on environment, on the air, on the water that we drink, and others. And the third point is sustainability links directly to activism. It could lead to climate protest and culture. And maybe I forgot to mention about the Greta Thunberg, where I really, really appreciate her efforts in making the activism toward the environment and also the Palestinian side. Um, and here I quote something that sustainability turns leadership into a legacy. It's about what we leave behind. Maybe it's saying that, sustainability is only talking about the future, but actually it's not. I mean, today it can be the past. So do we really care about our past, present, or future? It's linked tightly. And next slide is a question again. A big why we should involve and connect it all together. The first reason is because these challenges, climate challenges, cultural misunderstanding, and global issues, are deeply connected to each other. We cannot ignore that. Why? Because you see, when climate change happens, it causes flood or something. It causes conflict happens. And when cultural misunderstandings, like for example, like for me myself, I'm living among Japanese, my Japanese friends in this campus. They often think that I don't want to become Indonesia, but I want to become Indonesia. That cultural misunderstanding could be great if we are not trying to find a solution. If, for example, like if I'm just staying in Aceh, they will not know that how Aceh people opinions toward Indonesia. And that's what it says that it connects deeply. And then the second point is that we are in the generation where we are living at intersections. So means that there are no boundaries among us. Although we are different, we can connect through online or other platforms. And the third one is that because peace, justice, and the future cannot wait for the permission. I very like this term because there is no permission to work accordingly to find a solutions of the problems. And last one, but at least, is from the young people to the community in action. Young people also, I don't know, like before I'm doing my internship, I was thinking that my voice cannot be heard as a young people. But when I come there and I voice out how my perspective as a Gen Z, all in the term of sustainability, and they finally recognize it, I will feel that something very, very happy. You know, we young people, we do want to contribute to the society. We do want to contribute to the world these days. And we young people really aware that what is the problems that we face and want to get involved with it. And here I show you how it's all connected to each other. The first one is activism, and then second one is culture, and then sustainability. It creates the borderless leadership. It means that although it's different terms here, although we are all different, but there is always a bridge to bring us to solve that problem, where the activism fills the voice and the culture bring the soul, and also the sustainability itself provides the vision of the future. And here I want to bring one of the quotes from Jose Rizal. Is the youth is the hope of the future. Yes, I mean our seniors here also ever become a youth back then. And yes, you are bringing something to the future, to the present. You bring something valuable, and you. I mean, today's world cannot be today's world if you guys not do anything in the past. And if back to the questions again, what kind of leaders does the world need today? I come out with 5 points. The first one is empathy. It's saying from others' views, which is related to the culture. We involved in everything, but talk to solve problems. And then we also need inclusivity, the leaders that can be inclusive and embracing diversity. We are all different. We need to embrace each other. And then third one is vision, where we're solving problems, not winning the arguments. We might have the discussion towards and arguing to each other because we have different point of view. But our vision is to solve the problems. So let's find a bridge to that. And then the fourth one is that this first not domination but cooperation. Means we cannot be ego. Ego means we cannot just want to be dominate to each other, but also cooperation. And the last one is that value-based actions, not waiting for power, but acting from purpose. We cannot just rely on the government, like for example, the educational system in Indonesia, where I really find out that Indonesian children in Malaysia who cannot afford for school, I was thinking how their future will be. And we cannot just waiting the power from our government. We can just work like that. Teach them, having a class, free class. Although it's far from here to make it winning, but we always try ourselves to give the best education for them. And this is what leadership beyond borders means. It's not about where you come from, but what you stand for. I might say that my presentation today is like a kind of heavy thing, but I do want that youth are realizing that big things are always starting for the small part. We don't know that students that we teach in Penang can be someone in the future. They can be the youth for Indonesia. They can be the youth for international. So don't always underestimate something small because big things always come from small things. And maybe that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful talk, Ainur. And I think it's a good different facet that you approach the same topic because you talked about the importance of being able to take action regardless of your age. Because uh, leadership is really about a choice, not just a position. So you don't wait until you're old enough or you have a certain rank to exercise leadership. You just have to focus on your own behavior and the impact on culture and really thinking more uh, holistically and see the long-term sustainable impact of everything that we do. So again, I'd like to encourage everyone to write down if they do have questions specific to Ainur. But at this point, I'd like to be able to open the forum in terms of getting our audience to share their thoughts and direct their questions, perhaps, to any of our three speakers so that we can synthesize the important discussion regarding having the kind of leader that is demanded for today and for the future. Okay, so allow me, you may want to raise your hand so that I can call you in the right sequence. Okay, Ambassador Reslan, I see your hand. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Much later. Let me first of all commend all the three that have presented about leadership, kind of quality leadership. I think it's quite a comprehensive presentation if we combine that three together, starting from the theory of leadership. And then the second one is looking at the past experiences, the situation that produce a leader. And the third one from Ainur is about how a leader should, what kind of leader do we need for this world of complexity, that is complex, diverse, and so on. What strikes me is this this line that all the three, I think, speakers have mentioned about the importance of democracy. Democracy. While I agree 100% with that, but the thing is, as Ainur said, what we need is a leader and sustainability of purpose, sustainability of ideas. The irony is that democracy produces leaders for a certain time, for a certain period of time. Some countries have 5 years election period, and others have 4 years. But leaders come as a politician here. They are elected democratically, and they work for some years, and they have to think about being re-elected. So how I would like to get the view of students of youth. How can a leader emerge from this kind of system of democracy which is, I mean, the best among the worst, but so far, I mean, the fact that the democracy is on the retreat is not only because the leaders that are now very strong and has affected in the way that the march of democracy, but the system of democracy itself, it's something that is that should be improved, I believe. Sustainability of purpose, sustainability of target is far from a politician. They think for 5-year term and again think about being re-elected, as I said before. But there is one thing in the experience of the development of Indonesia a couple of years ago, that we have what we call the broad outlines of state policy, and this state policy was and being how do I say that being established by the and of the region, and this broad policy its term freedom and go. They can their own program, their own vision and mission, but it has to be in with the broad outlines of state policy. But when we transform into a democracy, this state policy broad line is not anymore in place. So the thing is about, I mean, democracy is not the perfect one, and we cannot expect leaders to emerge solely because of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing an interesting question, because certainly the reality of the politics seems to be how to stay in power rather than just, having a clear focus about what changes to bring about, and also thinking about beyond themselves, not just staying in power. So I'd like to ask any of the three to share their response before we go to the next hand that's being raised. I'll come to you after a response. Who would like to respond to that statement of Ambassador? Any response from the three? Yes, Ainur, go ahead.
Maybe what I can catch from the one is that he's saying that leadership cannot be just rely on democracy, right? Yes. So I totally agree with what the first one said. We are young people. Sometimes we want to contribute to the society, but we always yes. Yes, sir.
Can you speak a bit louder?
Oh, okay.
Bisa bicara lebih keras dikit?
Bisa. Okay. I totally agree with your opinion, saying that we are leadership cannot only rely on democracy, because actually, if we talk about democracy, the way we saw democracy from different countries is really different. I mean, it's a different perspective on democracy. There are some countries applied for democracy, and there are some countries who not applied for democracy. And also, young people also think the same, on democracy. So I was thinking that democracy can limit our leadership, how to say, leadership, leadership ability. Like I said before, if the democracy is there only for the leadership, young people cannot do anything. Young people are not involved in that democracy. Young people just want to do action and actions. We do see the problems here. We want to solve it. There are certain agenda that we should meet in the democracy, and somehow young people think that where it's almost like wasting time somehow. So why we don't just work on it? Why we don't just take action directly? You know, and that's what my opinion is. Thank you.
Thank you. That's why we were saying leadership is not really about the position or having elected position, but it's really taking action, regardless of the position you are or regardless of how young you are. Okay, let's hear Lakan's response before we again go to more questions. Yes, and response. Lakan?
Yeah, thank you for that very thought-provoking question, Ambassador. No, but I think I'd like to contextualize the democracy in the sense of how the social system was actually established. So if you look at the history of democracy, the first known democratic form of society was actually in Athens. That's where like citizens were produced, and if you're a citizen, later on it develops into a vote where civil liberties are now being expanded, and you're allowed to be able to participate in the form of government and in the form of, what do you call this, solution to certain social problems that you have. And if it's not in the mainstream social solutions, you are able to, what do you call this, bring to the higher levels of decision making in the public sphere the certain issues that you have. Yes, I agree that democracy isn't perfect. Like any other form of social structure in the world, no? There are always good and bad sides to that. For example, before the civil liberties civil rights movement in the United States, in a democratic society, there was still segregation. Prior to that, there was still slavery. It was still legal. So it's, but I feel like in the case of the Philippines, for example, we have already developed democracy in several stages. Wherein now, as we're talking about youth, I'd like to share that in the Philippines, we have the youth councils at the barangay level. And the barangay level is like your community level in the Philippines. They are actually elected by residents of that certain community. And the age group is around 17 to 24 to be an elected member of the council. And I've shared this with a lot of fellow youth around the world, and they were always amazed how in a democratic society like the Philippines, you have a policy and a youth arm that actually participates in policy making. I agree that democracy doesn't produce the best of us per se, in terms of leadership, but it does, at the very least, allow us a platform, especially the youth, to participate in participatory democratic governance in that manner. There are negative sides to that, no? Like if a country, for example, country A has overtly populist rhetoric being uh what do you call it, amplified in the country, of course you're going to produce someone that's not really, the best leader that you will need uh in a certain period of time, and just occupies the public position for, like you said, 5 years, for example. That doesn't really affect and may even destroy the established, what do you call this, societal issues that you have in that specific period. But again, there are other forms of democracy like parliamentary, representative, federal, no, in terms of voting. But in terms of the leadership, I think it's not democracy per se that produces the best types of leaders, but it's the leaders that are born out of the worst of conditions that are the most inspiring for me. And how they are able to transform the worst conditions into the best form of solutions. And I think that's where I'm coming from, wherein the type of leadership should come from the sector or the part of society where they are the most affected, because those people will most likely have the best solution, whether that's democratic or not.
Good point. Good point. Thank you for your response. So, Yisu, would you like to unmute yourself? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm on there. Great. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much for the three presentations. I think that the point just raised that the link really is democracy, and the relationship between democracy and leadership. So I've got a few well, a question for each presenter, and maybe a few comments as well. So, on Michelle's presentation, I really enjoyed the link, the different theories of leadership, and particularly the one identified Max Weber's charismatic leadership, and very clearly identified the positives and the negatives to that. One area perhaps of disagreement I had is when the Trump administration was mentioned, and the idea that Trump is not empathetic, and again that empathy issue comes through here. I would suggest that populist leaders such as Trump are weaponizing empathy, that it's only they who understand the man and the woman on the street, but the liberal elites, the liberal establishment, they're the ones living in an abstract world. So weaponizing empathy. So it's possible to identify genuine empathy, fake empathy, and where that criteria might be identified. The outsider. And I think that concept of the outsider itself is interesting for this issue of populism, because this in a way is how populist leaders promote themselves. They are the outsiders, when of course in reality they're very much from within the establishment. So I'd be interested in Michelle's comments on this idea of empathy, how where we can distinguish fake empathy. I've got I suppose a kind of historical question first. I'm really interested when you mentioned this kind of period of World War II. Different countries have different origins. It actually reminds me of the historian A.J.P. Taylor, who basically says World War I is easy to identify the starting point. World War II a little bit more difficult, because each country's experience is very, very, very different. So my first question is a historical one. What was the impact of Pearl Harbor? And bringing the Americans into World War II, did that change the dynamic and the opportunities, the options these leaders had that you identified, particularly because military and national liberation? I'm also wondering that your presentation is very much based on the kind of great man of history theory, which I think Michelle also mentioned in her presentation. You mentioned people like Roosevelt and Churchill, and the whole debate about Churchill, whether, there's kind of skepticism and critical assessment of Churchill's role. I'm just wondering whether you can apply the same criteria of leadership for the kind of the heroes or the sacrifices that were made by these very famous leaders to those who are leaders every day in their everyday lives, whether it's in school, whether it's in business, in the voluntary sector. Is that a different criteria of leadership? And if so, what would that criteria be? And just a few comments on Rahmah's presentation. It links to the point raised about the kind of voluntary question. Leadership is not power. That's quite an interesting one, I think. The identity question as well. Is leadership about leading from the front, leading from behind? And is it about willingness to not just take risks, but also willingness to listen to feedback as well? And that's kind of a definition of what leadership is, that openness to feedback. When you mention culture, are you saying that culture is purely an instrument of leadership? or are you saying that culture defines the criteria for when we are able to recognize leadership and when leadership is seen to be legitimate? So those are my questions. So again, thank you very much for your comments and your presentations. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So who among our speakers would like to give an immediate response? Yes,
So,
Michelle?
respond first. Thank you for the question. I brought up Trump to someone who goes against this empathetic leadership. And I do agree that he's using this something about, oh, I understand you people, some certain people who are considered to be left behind. And he is using that to go against the humanitarian values. But I think that's an empathy towards a certain group, and that's that's not based on humanitarian values. It sounds like empathy, but it's not based on moral or humanitarian values that it's more important. Um, so I think that's how people have to discern that kind of fake empathy, to see whether it's based on these values that are common. Because at the baseline, we're all humans, and international. I think in this kind of global conflict era, I think the empathy should go like further, not just towards a certain specific group, like this type group, to go beyond borders and to reach towards other countries and nations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. Any other response from the other speakers? If not, we can go to Professor Mikio Oishi, please. Kindly unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so quality voice okay because I changed microphone. But
Much
anyway,
better.
hopefully
It's much better.
much better. Yeah, oh, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
much better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the three speakers. So each presentation quite interesting and in their own way. And so I kind of come up with questions to each of you, starting with Michelle and Lakan and last one, Ainur. So first, Michelle, no. So thank you very much for your interesting categorization of the leadership. My question is that, as I see it, maybe the Korean leaders and typically the president of South Korea, president. So maybe from the leadership in Korea, maybe from outside, I have the impression that the Korean leaders are always maybe strong, right? Strong and charismatic in a way. And yeah, something like that. Even though their ideologies are different, yeah, right? And there are certain maybe so-called maybe right-wing politician and some left-wing politician. But I'm how do I say? I'm originally from Japan, and maybe Japanese culture and Korean culture, maybe there's something maybe very different, but something in common, yeah? Because especially because of the common philosophical heritage, like the Confucianism, Buddhism, and the Taoism, right? So I'm just wondering, and is it possible whether the Korean leader can adopt the leadership that strongly reflects the more Korean tradition. And you discussed it mostly. I think you try to categorize the leadership according to the idea, according to the concept, and maybe generated in Western academic centers, right? So I'm just wondering whether any whether some kind of the leadership is possible that to reflect Korea tradition. And for example, in Southeast Asia, and there are many from Southeast Asia, and in South Asia, we have these two important principles, mushawara. And the mushawara, this is a consultation. And another one is a muafakat. This is a consensus. This one is how to create a decision making. This one and consultation. That all people in the meeting and participate. This is a kind of the brainstorming. So any can say something, even though the certain opinions are very irrelevant, out of the point, but still this can be, and maybe adopted, maybe fed into the common decision making, something like that. So this is the consultation. Then from this consultation, then this one takes a long time, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. Then slowly the common understanding and the common understanding are coming up among the participants. Then based on that, and then the consensus has been reached. This is a very, very special in Southeast Asia. So I think that I suspect also Korea has something like that, not necessarily like this, but from outside, outside, we always think about the strong leadership, then again, maybe counter leadership from the opposition, and the Korean politics are always in a very huge struggle. So I think maybe more at maybe sub-national level, maybe regional level, there might be some interesting leadership, and that reflects Korea culture, not only the national culture, but maybe regional culture, because I don't like the nationalism, more the, how they say, and specific culture within the country. But this is for Michelle. Hopefully you understand what I say. But anyway, I would like you to share your opinion. Then second one, Lakan, thank you very much for your investigation of what happened during the Second World War, and especially facing the Japanese invasion. And Philippine perspective towards Japanese, maybe imperialism. And this is quite good actually, because this is not well known in Japan actually. And of course, we know the so-called the rape of Nanjing, but almost no Japanese knows rape of Manila. And rape Manila. But anyway, and this is, I think, good. And now what I'm concerned currently is that now it's the election period. Now the Japan House of Councillor election now, and campaigns going on, and one certain party, they insist Japan went to Southeast Asia, right? And other liberator, you know this argument, right? Liberator, not invader, not something like that. Yeah. And then he said, and at that time, South Asia has no country, so the wording of invasion doesn't apply. This is what he said, right? But of course, we know, and there are a lot of the independent movement, right? Movement to achieve independence in each country, not only the Philippines, but Indonesia and Myanmar, and then. This argument is very, very dangerous. And so if many people think there's no independent country at that time, but what exists is the Western colonies, so Western colonies exist there. Then Japanese military was sent as a liberator. So I want to create the counter argument, and based on the experience of the Southeast Asia. And I think you can provide a very good counter argument in this one from the Philippine and the Philippine perspective. So this is I would like to ask you. And then also I know, and your idea of borderless leadership, very interesting, yeah, very interesting. And if you consider the Southeast Asia political framework, ASEAN dominated. As you know, ASEAN is a state-centric organization, right? State-centric. But on the other hand, what is happening on the ground? There are a lot of the things that are happening, right? This is called maybe transnational, yeah? Transnational rather than international. Recently, the one lecturer from Sulawesi was invited, and then she shared the experience. This is a transnational initiative aiming for and what you say, environmental sustainability and all these things. And this one is very, very vibrant. Yeah. But still, when it comes to ASEAN, suddenly, and we think in terms of the state, yeah. And because basically, for a long time, ASEAN's idea is that based on the stable country, then the stable region. But and what you are exploring the very, very different thing, right? And I think this one is good for the future of ASEAN. And increasingly, ASEAN countries and the leadership, and they need to adopt and the view and from the grassroots. So maybe you may say something about this one. And your idea is very interesting, borderless. But ASEAN traditionally, clear-cut border exists. So this contrast between the two. So maybe you can say something about it. Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much for your question, Mikio. So who would like to, among the three of you, start first? Respond to Mikio? Because you responded, your question is directed to all three of them. Who would like to start? Michelle, go ahead. You have the floor.
So, thank you for your question. I really like that question. It made me think a lot because I didn't think about this cultural thing about how it can affect this leadership type and how it can affect how people support these leaders. But now that I think of it, I think the Korean culture is very much linked into this type of leadership because when I see like the US, the leaders in the US, they tend to be more like strong. But Korean leaders, they emphasize more of this humbleness type and more like respect. And so that's why there was some people didn't like our like current president when he was running for the election because he was like too direct when he speaks to people. That's why some people didn't like him. So I think that kind of reflects the Korean culture, which like emphasizes this some kind of respect and humbleness. And I think that's why he also got support from people because of his very like humble background. And also the president I mentioned, Romuhyun, he also comes from a very humble background. I think that's why people tend to support him more. Yeah, so I think that's a very good point that a cultural aspect can be also applied to these kind of leadership styles of different countries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. How about who's next to respond to Mikio's question?
I can respond next. I'd
Okay,
like
go
to
ahead.
actually share my screen. Sir, regarding the narrative of the current parties in Japan about there were no nations. But firstly, we were a known nation because our president of the Commonwealth in the Philippines, President Quezon, had a seat in the Pacific War Council. No, so it was recognized globally by the Allied powers that the Philippines, even if it was still under a Commonwealth government with the United States, was already becoming a nation of its own people. So that's one. Two, regarding the invasions of what they didn't apply, well, actually, I'd like to share with you a document that I recently read from my trip with in Korea with Professor Songho. And this is actually a document by the Koreans. No, this is not by the Filipinos. And this is in the World War II Memorial Museum. No, I think Professor Sungho can elaborate on this later on. No, but look at the paragraph here. It's a bit blurred. No, but here it states that the international situation during 1942 is that the sufferings of the Korean people have endured under Japanese oppression are greater than those of any other country, and their uh, but hatred of fascism is proportionately deeper. So in this mere document, which is thankfully an English version, no, it shows here that they were really invaders, and even the Korean people, not just the Filipinos, acknowledged the same struggle against Japanese fascism, invasion, no, and I suspect that the current rhetorics from the current party right now are actually neo Japanese fascist. Why? It comes off from the, what do you call this, the great East Asia Greater Prosperity Sphere, which is the ideological bible of the Asian fascists during that time. Second, and lastly, no, in the Philippines, our view is really a hard line against Japanese imperialism and invasion during that specific period, no. I also was able to look at and marvel at the Comfort Women commemoration statues, no, in Korea, which we used to have in the Philippines, but unfortunately in the recent years or so, it was actually mysteriously removed, no? And the Comfort Women statue was actually missing, and it's still missing until now from Rojas Boulevard in Metro Manila. So there is still what do you call this, correction, and this is why I've been saying earlier that there needs to be denazification that needs to continue in the Philippines and even in the home countries. Germany was already successful. Maybe Japan still needs more of that right now. Yes, I'll stop my screen right there.
Okay, thank you for your response. Okay, any other response? Otherwise, we can go to Seungju, who's raised his hand. Yeah, Seungju, unmute.
Thanks so much. Can you hear me, Bear?
Yes, very
We
well.
can
Thanks
hear
so
you.
thanks
Sorry,
so-
excuse me. I was also expecting from Ainur. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So
yeah.
can we hear from Arino?
Maybe you can say
Best.
something, right?
Okay. We'll go back to you when after we hear from a response from Ainur. Yeah, Ainur, please go ahead. We cannot hear you. You may want to adjust your microphone. Still no sound is coming out, Ainur. You may want to talk closer to the microphone. It's still, yeah. Go ahead.
No sound.
There's no sound, but it's already
No sound.
unmuted. Yeah, I think there's something wrong with your microphone. I'm sorry, we cannot hear you. You've been talking to the mic. Too bad we cannot hear the response from Miss Rahmah. She's did she drop from the call? Okay, maybe we can hear first from Jungju. We can go back to her response when she's
Right.
available.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Hope your sound comes back. Thanks so much for the presentation. I really want to say thank you for that. And if that's okay, also I wanted to comment on some remark from Mikio and also other part for what Lakan said about Germany. And I also have some questions also. Like I try to be really short. And as first, I'm from Korea, and as I'm also researching, I also did my master's in Germany, and so I lived there for 5 years. And for first about Germany, like I have to say that we should really stop comparing. And not, I mean, we can compare, but I really don't like to say that Germany is somehow better than Japan, because when we compare what they were doing, I'd like to suggest to compare what the government is doing and what the civil society is doing. What the civil society is doing on the colonial past, uh, in Japan, in Germany, from my perspective, even though Korea was colonized by Japan, the Japanese civil societies are much more active and very sincere. But when you look at the government level, what is Japanese government doing? I mean, we all know they try to ignore and they try to avoid and even not educating the history. When you look at Germany, we only try to look at what they are doing for white Jewish. But if you look at how they were doing on the people of Namibia, Cameroon, Togo, Tanzania that they were colonizing, they were exactly doing the same. It's like what Korean people often say to Japanese government, you should learn from Germany, but actually Japanese, how that they were doing is exactly what the Germans is doing. Actually, they were learning each other. That's what I have to mention. And also, I have to mention about Palestine, and Germany is really the guilty of what was going on, what is going on now, with the Israel and Palestine, and yeah, that's the part I wanted to mention. And so the remark to Mikio, connected to my question, is that it's for me it's quite interesting to hear that the Korean leaders are strong from the person from Japan. I don't know if you are think if you I'm not sure if you said it comparing to other leaders or just Korea. Uh, but maybe if you think it is as a strong leader, it's maybe because Korea is so close to Japan, and you can see the strong. I mean, you see the resistance really close to it, and um, also it is really hard to generalize leaders as just a strong. Like there are so many leaders. It's hard to generalize. And from my perspective, Japanese leaders are much more stronger because they're invading us. And so it's very yeah, hard to say like whether they're strong or not. It is just hard to generalize. And so I think it is more important to look at why then some leaders seem to be more charismatic and more seem to be attentive compared to other leaders. And my question for also uh, for the presenters um, about the past and also for the future, and especially how the Philippines and Indonesia are dealing with the colonial past by Japan and Spain and all of this Netherlands against the Indonesia. And when I'm sorry to say that, but most of the Europeans, when I was in Germany, they were saying that whenever we say that, oh, we have to focus on the future. It's very racist, I would say. And I think talking about the past it is really about the future. We're not just living on the past, and we're not that dumb. And so I wanted to ask, how is the current situation of that issue in Philippines and Indonesia? Also, even though I'm Korean, I would still like to ask. And share how you think about it and uh, how the Japanese government is doing, how the current government is kind of supporting or yeah, and then also our the role as a youth, what we can actually do with that. And especially thank you for introducing the important leaders from Philippines, and that's what Korean also we should really learn from Philippines. How the how many actually how many people were there actually try to respect their own dignity. Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for well, it will bring our discussion on a deeper level. Maybe, hopefully, we can get Ainur back, but Lakan, perhaps unmute.
Yes.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, Ainur is now. Okay, we can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
But the camera is now somehow.
That's okay. At least we can hear you.
Okay. Maybe I would like to answer the question from you. So, if I'm not mistaken, the question was like how to build borderless leadership in ASEAN. And my answer is building the borderless leadership in ASEAN. It requires a nurturing generation of young leaders who are driven by shared values rather than the limited national boundaries. Maybe, it's also become one of the challenges actually, but these leaders themselves must think regionally and act collaboratively. Well, I want to point out there is one program. It calls Wisely. So these programs are supported by the United States with the Southeast Asian year, where we can join this program and having fellowship together. And there are a lot of programs like that. And these programs can lead us to what it calls borderless in ASEAN itself. And I also think that first of all, we need to promote a sense of regional identity without asking the youth to abandon our national will. I mean, we all have our national identity, and it's very important that young people itself not only as a citizens but also become Southeast Asians because Southeast Asian is we are Southeast Asian, so we should recognize it because it's one big regional organization in our region. So we act not as one of the national identity, but also become regional youth. And that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ainur. At least we can hear you. Yeah, Lakan, would you like to continue?
yeah. Thank you, Songju, for your remarks. No, I really appreciate it actually, and it's interesting to know that you were at 5 years in Germany. um, First of all, yeah, I totally agree with you of the irrelevancy of asking whether who was better with the the Germans or the Japanese, because totally agree they were both part of the Axis powers during World War II. So it's really irrelevant to be asking that question. But towards your remark regarding uh how the view of it today is, and I'm coming off from the idea. First of all, that's I'm coming from a heritage society. No, that's my current affiliation in this forum. And this is something I'd like to emphasize on, that we have to strengthen the international network of civil society organizations. And I think the History for Peace NGO Forum is one of the best platforms for that, because we are able to learn about each other's nations, cultures, shared struggles like struggles of colonialism, and of different Western colonizers. No, uh, and how we now look towards and envision a common future, a global future, a better global society, no, that we would like to envision. So I think that's the message, is that when we are able to strengthen the network of civil society organizations on an international level and show the how bad certain experiences were for specific nations, that's where we can look at the common ground of being, how what it means to actually be human. And that's why you have, for example, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And more than anything, the best part about certain forums like this, apart from getting to learn from each other from different international perspectives, it's also to continue your borderless education and how the common struggle for peace is continuous, but that you are not actually alone, especially if you're young like us. No? We now see that we're not alone in that common struggle. So it's that point of strengthening the network of civil societies, strengthening, continuing your borderless education for a better and peaceful society. And lastly, to increase civil liberties in order to attain these two other objectives.
Okay, thank you. A very interesting way of, you can see now that we can look at the value of the diverse and unique culture and histories that we've all had. But nowadays, it's really putting it all together because we need more models for what will be required of the future. For every kind of different culture, you cannot have the same kind of leader. So it's really not a one size fits all, as history has taught us. So certainly in defining our destiny of what kind of future we need more examples, but we need to learn from one another's examples. I think that's the thing. Not to compare, but to really understand why each culture perhaps may require a different kind of leader. And what is common for all? Certainly, we need leaders who are willing to take action and live their values as good role models. Someone who has a compelling vision, whether it's their vision or the collective vision, democratically, or your ability to create the kind of culture. See, you cannot do it alone, but it requires a good reading of what other people are also thinking about. So it's really not about the leader, but the leader taking charge of what everyone else might be thinking and take everyone's welfare. I mean, that's certainly not an easy thing to accomplish. But yeah, and then a leader who's not really about controlling people, but to inspire people to take charge of their own lives and to also listen to one another's different needs. Huh? So, can we hear from the others who might want to share their thoughts at this point?
Can I?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would
Go
like
ahead,
to
Arner. Please
answer
speak to
the
the
question.
microphone. Yeah, it's fading. You
Can
may
you hear
want to
me?
take out yeah, now can hear you.
Okay. So I'd like to answer the question from Julie, if I'm not mistaken to pronounce the name. So you asked how the Indonesian react to the past colonialism. So in the present day itself, Indonesia has to carry the legacy of its colonial past, where national pride in independence is very strong. And we also struggle against colonialism. And the history of colonial past is always written in our education. From very young age, from um, in the elementary school, we have been learned about who colonized us and how we deal with it. But since Indonesia and Netherlands have the diplomatic relation has evolved, and also with Japan, and Japan also already apologized for what happened in the past. Right now, the colonial era challenge can be there, but still, like how to say, like we can recognize that feeling, but still, because of Indonesia have the diplomatic relations with those countries, we still have a good relation in some ways. But there are also the challenges. So some colonial era can impact the economic inequality, like in the society. For example, if we are talking about economic inequality, we would think about this happens because of the colonial past. But again, the history made us realize that colonial past is something that we should learn, not always like we just feel it, like always feel and feel. We should move on from it and find another solution. And the history become one of the tools to provide information on how we act accordingly to it. Thank you. Hope we
Okay, thank
answered.
you. Yes, can we hear from the others? Yes, Lakan, you may want to. You're just agreeing with the statement. Anyone else who wants to share their thoughts about everything that's been discussed regarding a very interesting topic? They always say leadership is the highest of the arts because it affects everybody else individually, collectively, and it shapes the culture that we have. See, when you have poor leadership, you have poor health in healthcare, in economics, in politics. So leadership in all fields certainly demands improvement. So we must learn from history. We must study deeper the causality of everything that we're facing today, so that we become wiser. I mean, certainly it's a call for uh, for the young now to express their voice and connect it with others. We have to think more as a global society rather than just individual nation states. Okay, Lakan, please.
Yeah, just wanted to add on the topic on decolonization, because in the University of the Philippines, there's actually a research program uh called the Decolonial Studies Program. So its main niche is to study how coloniality has affected particularly the Philippines, but really it's more wider, broader in scope, no. And I discovered that there are actually decolonial studies research centers, programs spread throughout the world right now. And I think that's an important facet that is now being developed. Not even in the Western countries, there are certain programs like this that they even the West has acknowledged the negative effects of colonialism throughout the world, really. And it but while there is existing research programs, centers and such, the problem I still have with it is that I think the body of knowledge we have of it is still thin on a wider scale. I think it still needs to expand. But on a good note, it's already existing as institutions, which is I think one of the best parts of the development of recent history. Yeah.
Hey, Bernard, unmute yourself. Yeah, Professor Bernard Carganilla, kindly unmute.
Congratulations to our three leaders for presenting. I think we have some data because you're not a leader if you don't have followers, right? So I asked Michelle and Ainur, and I'm going to ask Lakan also. I posted something on the chat box. So Ainur, Michelle, and Lakan, thumbs up if you have an IG account. Please thumbs up. Michelle, I think you have an IG account. Okay, so Malala, who I think was given a Nobel Prize, she survived an attack by the Pakistan Taliban. She has 3 million IG followers. So she must be a leader because she has 3 million followers. Greta Thunberg has 15 million IG followers. So she must be a leader because she has 15 million followers. And Kylie Jenner has 393 million IG followers. So who do you follow, Ainur?
Definitely I follow Malala Yousafzai and also Greta Thunberg. Well, maybe I would like to I would like to answer why you might asking like why it has a lot of followers in Kylie Jenner, where the followers are actually cannot just defined by views itself, because there are also saviors follow those accounts mostly.
I think we lost the sound again, Ainur. Anyway.
So yes, Michelle, it's okay to ask. But I only see the data, so I don't know who you follow.
She's
So
back. Okay.
okay.
I don't have an IG account. So it's you guys. You are the guys who have, and I'm sure you are also on Discord. Discord? No, you're not
Yes,
on. Oh, Michelle is on Discord. The name, the
I
name, the name of the platform itself is Discord, which is the opposite of Concord. So if we're talking about peace, the youth are on Discord, which is the opposite of Concord.
well, I used Discord in high school for a group project. That's the only time I used it, so I'm not on Discord. If that's like a platform that I use, no. I don't really know how it works really. I just used it because we needed a platform to communicate when we were doing like a club activity for environmental club in high school. So no Discord. But I do have Instagram, but I don't follow any of those three. I know the two people you mentioned, but the first um search for the I only know Greta and Kylie Jenner, but I do think that kind of connotation of like follower is something that makes that person a leader in a sense, if that's like a thing. But on Instagram, I think it's more like this kind of influencer that people say. So I think it's more like influencer and follower type um relationship rather than the leader and follower type. Because people follow them, but that doesn't mean that they support them. So
I agree with Michelle, and I want to add on that it might be the followers cannot be absolute. There are one individual have three IG accounts just to like checking on those accounts, but you on Instagram itself you should differentiate between people who has concern celebrity or in activism. So I think like if you combine between um, Kylie and also Greta, it must be different things to talk. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. If there's no other, I'd like to allow a peace advocate
Wait,
and a
wait.
leadership.
Lakan has not answered.
Lakan,
Lakan has
Lakan. Where's Lakan? Sorry,
Yeah.
Lakan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm constantly on Instagram. I think that's the youthful part of this program. But yeah, I actually follow Malala and Greta Thunberg on my own accord. I follow Kylie Jenner because of my girlfriend. And I also follow Martin Luther King. He has even if he's dead, no, he has actually an Instagram account. So it's interesting. But I do agree with the other two that this is the relationship on Instagram. Is actually more of, we have this word now of our generation called influencers. You may not necessarily lead in that manner. You lead a rally or you lead a social movement for that matter, but at the very least, you have that one of the key elements of a leader, which is influencing, which is to a certain degree might be actually negative because there are influencers that will influence you to the dark side of the force, no? So you can see the nuancing of that. But yes, I do follow a lot of world leaders as well, no? Obama, I know for a fact is also on Instagram. A lot of his forums are actually there. So yeah.
Yeah. So popularity and notoriety, but that's why they say don't just read the books that they wrote, but study their lives. So I think the people are also looking into people's lives because they are out in the open. Okay, James, please unmute yourself from the Ivory Coast, my good friend. James, kindly unmute.
Yeah, yeah. Am I audible? Okay, sorry.
Hear you.
I'm on the road, and there is noise on the backgrounds, and I don't want to miss this conversation and this important topic. Leadership in the context of the youth of today, I think for me is such an important topic. Leadership beyond borders, and what kind of leaders does the world need today? And from my own perspective, as a community leadership educator and promoting global competency and global leadership education, I think that it is very necessary that we change the paradigm of what leadership need to be from an adaptive perspective, because we have seen from the traditional standpoint, looking at the politics or culture, we see that leadership has been used as a weapon of control. That is where we've been talking about colonialism, neo-colonialism, and all these concepts of control over the other. I think that what will really alleviate the world from the impasse of non-communication, of that being rigid as over versus being open to invitation of everyone's gift to contribute, to explore each other's gift, to offer solution collectively, as opposed to individual dictating for everyone, individuals believing that they have that answer to every problem. I think this is the political aspect that the world is facing today. Yeah, I listened to many prominent politicians speak, winning peace through strength. And when I hear the word winning peace through strength, I begin to imagine the type of leadership that will be or that will offer. And I can see that you cannot exercise true leadership without being open, without giving room for each and everyone within that sphere to feel invited, to feel important, that their gift matters. The youth today in my organization, in my different programs, I brings in humanity as the center of what leadership means to me, whereby each youth sees himself as a part of the whole, not seeing himself as a power over the others, but power with everyone. Because I discovered that each individual has a gift, and everyone from every different spectrums have gifts to contribute. So for me, the division of leadership is about moving in collectiveness, and offering that opportunity for everyone's gift to speak into finding common solution versus one person looking to have the answer to all. So I think that today's leadership should be looking in that direction. But it's unfortunate that the political leadership definition is power over and control. Whereas from the non-material, from that human leadership perspective, is about collectiveness, is about bringing everyone together in that move of change, in that being leaders, in that being the change, by having everyone's gifts be into the solution to any problem that individuals, communities systems or the world may be facing. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, James, for sharing that. It's a very thought-provoking evening, and I think this conversation can go on and on until the wee morning. But yeah, maybe we can still hear a few more voices before I turn this to Sungho.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, moderator. Okay, Raymond. It's a very important topic and very live and active discussion. Already we exceed, around 30 minutes. Okay. Uh, I really thank you, the three speakers, the young members, particularly Michelle Law. Michelle, in fact, she is very young, and she today maybe it's the first time to what inter general kinds of dialogue, okay, with our senior members, and she maybe got a very good idea for her, future assignment, okay, to do more research on this topic. And Lakan, junior scholar, okay, we really learn from you too, okay, from about the Philippines and the leadership. And also Ainur, okay, the undergraduate school students, and it will be a wonderful experience to join this international forum with the senior scholars. And and I also thank you, the advisor, Professor Mikio Oishi, recommend okay, Ainur to this forum. Okay, really, I think leadership is really important, particularly for this contemporary world. Uh, uh, in this in an era of this unprecedented global connectivity and challenge, the younger generations are increasingly confronted with the rising geopolitical tensions and spread of populism, okay, and growing regional conflicts. So I chose my committee chose the leadership beyond the borders. Okay, what kinds of leader does the world need today? Okay, about the future. But here Mr. Lee, Seungju Lee mentioned our past is very important. Okay, history is important. The leader should learn from the past, okay, the history. And I really think particularly Korea, surrounding countries, we have this very unhappy history. How could we overcome this, historical conflicts? Still is our assignment, particularly my NGO, History NGO for Peace in East Asia. And also we can share our experience with our neighboring countries like the Philippines and also some other continents, okay. And that's why my forum, okay, my History NGO Forum, my committee, my here international committee will continue this Global Thursday Forum, okay. But today, our session, I'm sure, is very successful. This is in connection with our international conference. It started today, okay, during daytime. And tomorrow we have our still program, field trip. Okay, we travel to Incheon. The Incheon International Airport is there. Incheon is the first the port, okay, open to the outside, and the history of immigration of the Korean, the people there. So we'd like to travel to see all these historical sites and the traces of the history tomorrow with our delegates. Okay, and I announced this Thursday forum. This semester, the earlier part of this year, this is the last session, okay, and we have a summer break because here in Korea extremely hot, okay, so we have summer break until early of September, and I'll announce you, or I'll send you notice that we'll resume our Thursday forum, in September, okay, in September. So until then, I I hope you will stay healthy and take good care of yourself. Okay. And today, really thank you, the all participants, and particularly the three speakers and today's moderator. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, and hope to see you next
Thank you.
semester. Okay,
See you in
everybody.
September.
Okay, okay, see you in
Thank you very
September.
much.
Okay, bye bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Okay,
Suho.
bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.